Silence screams sometimes, louder than any sound. One moment, the world is vibrating with shared laughter, sunlight warm on skin, the scent of pine needles sharp in the air. The next, it's just still. An emptiness opens up where another person should be. It happens in an instant, a blink, a turned head, and the familiar shape is gone. It's the kind of moment that cracks the foundation of everything you know, especially when that missing person is the other half of your soul. This is where the story begins, in 1992, in a town that thought itself immune to darkness, with twins whose bond felt unbreakable. But some breaks cannot be mended. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe if you believe the truth always surfaces. The summer sun is hanging high, painting the leaves of the old oak a shimmering green. Elara and Elias are moving through the long grass at the edge of the woods behind their house, bare feet silent on the warm earth. They are 12, two halves of a whole, their lives a tangled thread of shared breaths and whispered secrets. Elias is leading, pushing back branches, his movements quick and impulsive. Elara follows, her eyes tracking his every step, a quiet protector keeping watch. Their connection hums between them, a silent language of glances and subtle shifts in posture that speak volumes only they understand. Their latest adventure involves mapping every corner of the small woods, finding new places to hide the smooth creek stones they call wish rocks. The air smells of damp earth and wild mint, thick with the lazy hum of cicadas. Laughter bubbles up from Elias, a bright, clear sound that Elara catches and amplifies with her own. They reach their favorite spot, a small clearing where a fallen log makes a perfect seat. Elara is turning, expecting Elias to be settling beside her, their knees bumping as always. But he isn't there. Her gaze sweeps the clearing, then back towards the path they just took. Nothing. A tiny knot forms in her stomach. Elias? She thinks, the question hanging unspoken in the suddenly too quiet air. The cicadas seem to have paused their song. The sunlight, just moments ago warm and inviting, now feels harsh, illuminating an unnerving emptiness. She spins around, her heart giving a sudden panicked lurch against her ribs. She is looking behind the trees, under bushes, her eyes wide, scanning frantically. "Elias!" she calls out, her voice sharp with a fear that is instantly blooming in her chest. Her breath is coming in short, ragged gasps. There is no reply, only the oppressive stillness of the woods. A cold dread is washing over her, replacing the warmth of the sun. She is running now, stumbling back the way they came, calling his name over and over, the sound raw and desperate. Where is he? The path behind her looks undisturbed, yet he is gone. A cold shadow is falling over the idyllic day, chilling her to the bone. This isn't a game. Something is terribly wrong. The quiet woods feel like they are watching her, holding their breath, keeping a terrible secret. Elara is stumbling backwards, tripping over roots she knows intimately. She is calling his name, her voice a ragged whisper, tearing into the sudden quiet. Panic coils cold and tight in her gut. "Elias! Elias!" She turns wildly, her eyes scanning the familiar cluster of trees, the worn path leading towards the creek. There is nothing but the deepening shadows, the rustle of leaves that suddenly sound menacing. Denial is a fierce shield, vibrating with frantic energy. He's just hiding, playing a trick. He has to be. She's running now, her breath catching in her throat, pushing through low branches, ignoring the scratches on her arms. Where did he go? How could I let this happen? The frantic searching starts small, just her own desperate circuit, widening by the second. Soon, other lights begin to appear. Neighbors are emerging, flashlights beaming erratic circles against the trees, their voices low and questioning at first, then rising in alarm as the news spreads through hurried phone calls. The air is thick with growing dread, replacing the evening chill. People gather at the edge of the park, their faces pale and drawn in the artificial light. The sounds of their calls, shouts, and the rustle of many feet searching the undergrowth create a new, unsettling rhythm. An overwhelming sense of helplessness begins to settle, heavy and suffocating. Elara moves among them, yet feels utterly alone, separated by the hot, churning shame inside her chest. Every face she meets feels like an accusation. You were watching him. You. The first siren slices through the night, a piercing wail that signals the end of hope and the beginning of something cold and official. Blue and red lights pulse, casting eerie, shifting shadows across the worried crowd. Police cars arrive, sleek and impersonal. Their presence a stark contrast to the familiar faces of the townspeople. Officers emerge, their movements purposeful, their voices calm but firm. The chaotic civilian search gives way to organized grids, systematic sweeps. Then the visual punch, bright yellow tape unspooling, creating an unnatural boundary across the entrance to the woods, wrapping around lampposts, sectioning off areas where children just played hours before. It's a stark, brutal line drawn across their reality, signifying that this is no longer a search and rescue. It is something far worse. The yellow tape feels like a physical weight pressing down on Elara's chest. It isolates her further, a visible manifestation of the barrier now separating her from the easy comfort of her past. Guilt wraps around her like a shroud, a cold, heavy blanket woven from what-ifs and if-onlys. She can barely breathe under its weight, the image of Elias's last moments flickering behind her eyes. A deep-seated trauma is taking root in this moment, a wound that feels like it will never heal. The town falls quiet, the initial frantic energy replaced by a stunned, watchful silence. Whispers carry on the crisp air. A child gone from here. The scent of damp earth and pine needles, once comforting, now holds the sharp tang of fear. Everyone is looking, searching, waiting, but the space where Elias should be is empty, a void that echoes with unanswered questions and a profound sense of loss that chills the entire community to the bone. The woods stand silent, holding their secrets tight in the deepening darkness. The years pile silently, heavy dust settling on forgotten file boxes in the police station and on the small photo frame on Elara's nightstand. She is tracing the faded edge of the picture, her twin's laughing face captured mid-giggle. The paper feels fragile under her finger. Around her, the world keeps spinning. Seasons shift from vibrant green to stark white. School years begin and end. Friends move away. New friends arrive. But for Elara, time often feels suspended. Stuck on that single, devastating afternoon, she is navigating teenagehood under a persistent, gray sky. Conversations with classmates are stilted. How do you explain a constant ache? A missing piece so fundamental it feels like her own limb is gone. She finds herself withdrawing. The effort of pretending things are normal too exhausting. Laughter from the kitchen below sounds muffled, distant. She is learning to build walls, thick and silent, around the raw space where her twin should be. Sometimes, she catches her reflection in a shop window, and for a split second, a stranger is staring back, a girl defined by an absence, a girl whose smile never quite reaches her eyes. False leads flare up like cheap fireworks, brilliant and brief, leaving only disappointment and a thicker layer of ash on her hope. The police call, Their voices kind but tired. Another tip, another dead end. She is listening to the familiar rhythm of polite apologies, the words dissolving before they reach her ears. Her stomach tightens into a hard knot she lives with now. She feels the pressure building behind her eyes, but she does not cry anymore, not often. The tears seem to have dried up years ago, replaced by a dull, constant ache. Hope feels like a cruel trick, a fragile butterfly she keeps trying to catch, only for it to dissolve into mist each time. Despair is an old coat, heavy and worn, that she can never quite take off. It shapes her relationships, casting a long shadow. She hesitates to get close, fearing the inevitable question, the sympathetic gaze that makes her feel exposed and vulnerable. She is watching her friends plan futures, talk about college and travel, while her own future feels anchored to the past, a desperate, unending wait. The scent of her twin's favorite flower, blooming in the garden, sends a sharp, painful pang through her chest. She stands by the window, the glass cool against her forehead, watching the ordinary world move on, a world that feels impossibly far away. She is gripping the windowsill, knuckles white, a quiet storm brewing inside her. The answers aren't coming to her. Maybe she has to go find them herself. Elara is tracing the worn edge of a photo frame, her fingers brushing the glass that holds Elias's smiling face. She is 43 now. The soft light of the late afternoon is catching the fine lines etched around her eyes. Lines not of age alone, but of years spent carrying an invisible weight. The apartment is quiet, clean, outwardly organized, but the air inside hums with a constant, low-grade ache. Every morning, she is brewing coffee, the familiar scent filling the kitchen, and she is instinctively pouring 2 cups before catching herself. She's walking the same route to the market, past the park bench where they used to sit, her footsteps slowing almost imperceptibly. The vibrant greens and blues of the park are blurring as her vision softens, pulled inward to a landscape of memory. She's visiting the old bookstore, running her hand over the spines of books they once discussed. The scent of aged paper and ink is sharp in her nostrils, a sensory trigger that sends a jolt through her chest. It is a ritual, a quiet pilgrimage to the places where echoes of him linger most strongly. Her life is moving. She is working. She is interacting. She is performing the necessary motions of existence. But beneath the surface, the wound is perpetually raw. It is a phantom limb pain of the soul, a persistent awareness of what is missing. She is catching her reflection in a shop window, seeing a woman who looks complete, and a wave of profound sadness is washing over her at the deception. Sometimes, a flicker of something else surfaces, a brief, sharp pang that feels like betrayal. It is not directed at him, not exactly, but at the void he left, the unfinished story, the questions that hang unanswered. It is a tiny ember of resentment buried deep beneath the layers of love and grief, burning softly, unacknowledged. She is sitting by the window as dusk gathers, the city lights beginning to twinkle below. The silence in the apartment feels vast tonight. She is picking up her phone, scrolling through old message threads, reading words that are now ghosts. A notification pops up, something unrelated, mundane, and she is flinching, pulled back to the present moment with a jarring suddenness. She is closing her eyes, pressing her palm against her chest, feeling the frantic beat of her heart. The longing is a physical presence in the room. The memory of his laughter is suddenly vivid, cutting through the quiet like a sharp instrument, and she is gasping, a small broken sound swallowed by the silence. There has to be something more, some way to understand, to finally lay the past to rest or find it again. This quiet existence, haunted by memories and unanswered questions, feels increasingly unsustainable. There is a small box tucked away in the back of her closet, holding remnants of a life abruptly ended, perhaps holding a clue. The certified letter feels cool and heavy in Elara's hands. She isn't recognizing the return address, a small-town law office nestled deep in the mountains several states away. A distant tremor is vibrating through her chest, something unfamiliar and unsettling. She is slicing open the envelope with a trembling finger, the crisp paper resisting just for a second before tearing. The words inside are swimming, then solidifying. Bequeathed. Property. Uncle Silas. Uncle Silas. She's barely remembering a quiet man with kind eyes, seen only once, maybe twice, at long-ago family gatherings. A man seemingly unconnected to her current reality. An old cabin, the letter states, nestled beside a forgotten lake. Hers. Days later, the air is thick with the scent of pine and decay as Elara is pushing open the creaking door of the cabin. Dust motes are dancing in the shafts of sunlight, piercing through grimy windows. The silence inside is heavy, broken only by the groan of settling wood and the faraway call of a bird. Her boots are crunching on a thick layer of dust and scattered leaves that have blown in over years of neglect. Cobwebs are hanging like morbid decorations from the low ceiling, brushing against her hair as she is tentatively stepping further inside. She is running a hand along a rough-hewn wooden wall, feeling the age ingrained in the splintered surface. A musty odor, a mix of damp earth, stale wood smoke, and something else she can't quite place, is filling her lungs, making her cough. The main room is dominated by a stone fireplace, cold and empty. An old moth-eaten armchair is slumped in the corner, looking like a forgotten sentinel. There are stacks of yellowed newspapers tied with string, a few rusting tools leaning against the wall, and a bookshelf filled with titles she doesn't recognize, their spines faded and brittle. Her heart is a tight knot in her chest, a confusing mix of apprehension and a strange, budding curiosity. Why this? Why her? Uncle Silas had seemed like a ghost even when alive. A rumor whispered at family reunions. And this cabin, it feels less like an inheritance and more like a tomb for forgotten things. She is moving towards a narrow hallway, each step echoing in the stillness. A closed door at the end is drawing her gaze. It looks different, sturdier than the others, almost out of place. Reaching it, she is hesitating, her hand hovering over the cold metal knob. What is behind this door? Just more dust and neglect? Or something else entirely? Something that Uncle Silas wanted her to find? Something he deliberately left hidden away in this remote, decaying place? Taking a deep breath, the scent of dust and old wood thick in the air, she is turning the knob. The lock is groaning, resisting for a moment before clicking open. A cool draft is seeping from the gap as she is slowly pulling the door inward, revealing a darkness deeper than the shadows in the main room, holding a promise of secrets waiting within. Elara is pushing the heavy door open, the air inside thick and stale against her face. Dust motes are swirling in the single shaft of light, piercing the gloom from a high window. She is stepping over a threshold worn smooth by countless long-gone feet. The silence of the inherited house wrapping around her like a shroud. The furniture stands sentinel under forgotten sheets, lumps and contours suggesting the shapes of lives once lived here. A deep, musty smell, a blend of old wood, forgotten fabrics, and the quiet decay of time, is filling her lungs. Every surface she is touching is coated in a fine powder, the sediment of decades settling undisturbed. Her footsteps are soft on the aged floorboards, the only sound in the vast stillness. She is running her hand along the back of a wingback chair, feeling the worn velvet, imagining who sat here, what stories were told. It feels less like exploring and more like trespassing into a paused moment in history. A sense of profound quiet is pressing in, amplifying the rapid beat of her own heart. So much history here just waiting. She is moving deeper into the room, her eyes scanning the piles of objects, the stacks of boxes, the forgotten keepsakes. Each item seems weighted with memory, humming with the faint echo of its past purpose. She is picking up a small, tarnished silver locket, its hinge stiff, holding it for a moment before gently placing it back. Then, her hand brushes against something cool and smooth, hidden behind a stack of old canvases. It feels different from the rough wood or the dusty cloth. She is pulling it out carefully, dust raining down from where it rested. It is a mirror, but unlike the others she has seen, its frame is intricate, dark metal swirling into strange, unfamiliar patterns, almost organic. The glass isn't perfectly clear. There's a subtle ripple to it, a depth that seems to pull at her gaze. As she holds it, a strange warmth is emanating from the frame, a faint vibration against her fingertips. It doesn't belong with the other mundane items. It feels alive, charged with something she can't name. A shiver is tracing its way up her spine, a mix of intense curiosity and a sudden sharp unease. The mirror is catching the weak light, but the reflection isn't quite right. It's too still, too deep. She is tilting it slightly, and the room and the glass seems to shift, just on the edge of her vision. A strong cinematic glint flares from its surface, drawing her closer, her breath catching in her throat. Elara stands before the looking glass, her fingers tracing the cool, aged frame. The room around her feels quiet, hushed. The late afternoon light slanting in through a high window, casting long, gentle shadows. Dust motes dance in the beams, creating a hazy, golden atmosphere that softens the sharp edges of the world outside. She's just breathing, watching her own face look back. Weary lines around her eyes, a smudge of dirt on her cheek she didn't notice before. Her reflection is familiar, tired but present. The air feels still, holding its breath. She is simply existing in this quiet space, the mirror a passive observer reflecting only what stands before it. Then, the impossible happens. Her breath catches, a sharp, involuntary gasp tearing from her lungs. The reflection isn't hers anymore. It's sudden, a blink-and-you-miss-it flicker, but utterly undeniable. For a fraction of a second, across the decades, she isn't seeing her own face. She is seeing him, Elias, his eyes. They are startling and impossible, vivid green she remembers with painful clarity, filled with a light she thought extinguished forever. And his smile, a gentle, knowing curve of the lips, filled with warmth and a hint of that familiar, reckless charm. It's instantaneous, a photographic flash burned onto her mind before her own image snaps back into place, leaving only her stunned, pale face staring out from the glass. Her hand flies to her mouth, muffling a cry. She's staggering back from the mirror, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Disbelief washes over her, a cold tidal wave. No, it's not possible. I'm seeing things. I'm exhausted. Her mind scrambles, trying to rationalize the impossible vision. Was it a trick of the light? A figment of her overwhelming grief and longing? But the image is too clear, too precise. Those eyes, that smile, etched into her memory as if he stood right beside her. Tears sting her eyes, hot and sudden. The emotional turmoil is immediate, violent. Hope, sharp and agonizing, pierces the thick layer of sorrow she carries. Could it have been real? Could there be a connection, a way across the impossible chasm of time? Or is this just her mind breaking, conjuring ghosts from the past? Her body trembles with the intensity of her reaction, a raw, visceral response to seeing the one person she thought lost forever reflected back at her from a simple piece of glass. The quiet room feels charged now, vibrating with the echo of an impossible presence. She is rooted to the spot, staring at the mirror, her own reflection a stranger after that brief, dazzling glimpse of impossible green. The sudden reality of this inexplicable connection shatters her carefully constructed world, leaving her adrift in a sea of questions she never thought she'd have to ask. The image of Elias, sharp and clear in the reflective surface, clings to Elara's mind. She is backing away from the large mirror, her breath catching in her throat, shaking her head slowly as if to dislodge the impossible sight. This isn't happening. It's just fatigue, stress, the flickering candlelight playing tricks. Her heart is pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs, the sound echoing in the sudden quiet of the room. It wasn't real. She is trying to convince herself, pushing the impossible memory back, but the pull remains, a strange magnetic ache. She finds her feet carrying her back across the worn rug, a reluctant, hesitant movement. Her hand is trembling slightly as she reaches out towards the cool glass again, not touching it, just hovering inches away. She is staring into the surface, searching for anything but her own startled reflection. She is trying to replicate the exact conditions, the angle, the light, the state of mind, though she isn't even sure what the conditions were. She is focusing, concentrating, her gaze locked on the swirling depths within the glass, and then it shifts. Her own reflection wavers, distorting like water. It isn't Elias appearing again, not fully. Instead, fragmented images begin to flicker, quick as lightning strikes. She is seeing a brief flash of a crowded, unfamiliar street corner, buildings with architecture she doesn't recognize. Then it dissolves, replaced by a glimpse of a dusty, leather-bound book lying open on a wooden desk. A fleeting impression of a cold, damp air fills the space around her, though the room is warm. Her disbelief is fracturing under the assault of these impossible visions. The glimpses are not static. They are shifting, swirling, hints of something connected to him, reaching across the years. They offer no clear answers, only tantalizing fragments. A sense of his presence, or perhaps the aftermath of his presence in another time, is washing over her. It is terrifying, inexplicable, and utterly captivating. The cautious step back is becoming a lean forward, her focus intensifying. The mirror isn't just reflecting her world. It's showing her something beyond it, something that feels undeniably linked to Elias and the mystery of his disappearance. Her initial fear is morphing into a desperate need to understand, a cautious obsession taking root deep within her. The glass holds secrets, and she is beginning to believe they are within her grasp. Elara is kneeling before the large, ornate mirror, her breath misting the cool glass. She is not looking at her own reflection. Her eyes are fixed through it, willing the surface to bend, to shift. She is using it like a lens, a probe pushed into the fabric of the past, searching for the day Elias disappeared. The polished, silvered surface is not smooth anymore. It is swirling, pulsing with faint light, like dark water disturbed. Her fingers are tracing patterns on the frame, not consciously, but as if guiding the vision. She feels the chill radiating from the glass, a coldness that seeps into her bones, but her focus is absolute. She is a detective peering through time. Fragments begin to coalesce within the swirling depths. They are fleeting, blurry at first. A flash of familiar brown coat, the corner of a busy street, the indistinct murmur of voices. Elara leans closer, squinting, her heart hammering against her ribs. She is urging the mirror. Show me everything. The swirling slows, focusing like a camera lens clicking into place. A scene solidifies. Elias. He is standing near a shadowed alleyway, not the cheerful Elias she knows. He is looking worried, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. The lighting is dim, the air in the vision thick and heavy. He is talking to someone. The mirror zooms in slightly, a dizzying effect. It is a man, tall, face obscured by a low-brimmed hat pulled down. Elias is gesturing nervously, stepping back slightly. Elara's internal voice screams at him to run, to turn away. The man says something Elara cannot quite hear, but his tone is sharp, demanding. Elias shakes his head, a small, defiant movement. The man reaches into his coat. Not a weapon, but something he is passing to Elias. A small, dark object. Elara strains, trying to see what it is, but the vision flickers. It snaps back, showing Elias hurrying away from the alley, glancing over his shoulder. The man is still there, watching him go. A strong, cinematic detail emerges. The man's gloved hand resting on the brick wall of the alley. A distinctive signet ring, glinting faintly even in the poor light. The scene shifts again, showing Elias later that day, clutching the dark object tightly in his hand, looking utterly overwhelmed. He is walking towards the edge of town, towards the old abandoned mill. An emotional climax washes over Elara, a wave of sickening realization. This is why he went there. This object, this interaction, it is the key. The vision of the man in the hat lingers for a second longer than the others, the glint of the ring a chilling clue. He knows something, maybe is something. Elara pulls back, breathless, the mirror returning to a mere reflection, but the image of the ring is seared into her mind. Who was that man, and why did Elias go to the mill with that? She needs to know. The fractured images from the mirror swim behind Elara's eyes, a swirling vortex of distorted light and sound. She's sitting at her simple wooden table, tracing the patterns on its surface, but her mind is elsewhere, sifting through the chaos the visions left behind. A fleeting glimpse of a hand reaching, the metallic tang of something acrid, the faint sound of a particular chime. Separately, they mean little, disconnected sensory echoes. But the mirror binds them, threads them together, with an invisible, sickening logic. She's pulling at those threads now, her fingers tightening on the wood. It's like assembling a puzzle with missing, warped pieces. The chime. Where has she heard that chime? Not the town square clock, not the temple bells. It's softer, more melodic, like something attached to, yes, something personal, perhaps a wind chime or a small decorative piece. She pictures places she's been, rooms she's entered. The metallic tang, it felt like something used, something industrial or alchemical, not common in her quiet life, but combined with the hand reaching. The specific context of the mirror's warning, but jolt goes through her. The chime. She's heard it at the edge of the village, near the workshops, specifically near the old repurposed smithy that now serves as a repair shop for various trinkets and tools. And the metallic tang. Yes, they work with strange alloys there, sometimes volatile substances. It fits too well. Her breath catches in her throat. Now the hardest part, the face. The mirror shows glimpses, reflections not of form, but of feeling, intention. It showed a sense of veiled intent, a hidden motive behind a placid surface. She's overlaying that feeling, that aura the mirror captured, onto the people she knows who frequent that area, who fit that subtle deceit the vision pulsed with. It can't be. Her mind recoils. She's seen faces now in her memory, flickering like the mirror images. The gruff blacksmith, no, too open. The quiet herbalist, unlikely. Then it settles, terrifyingly, onto one. Someone familiar, someone she's trusted, someone who has offered a comforting word, a helping hand. A person whose face evokes no suspicion in the light of day. The face of Kale. Her stomach plummets. Kale, the gentle repairman, always ready with a smile, his workshop filled with the sound of that very chime, a gift from a traveling merchant he once told her about. The visions coalesce around him, the metallic tang suddenly associated with the oils and materials he uses daily. The reaching hand not one of aggression, but of calculated action, hidden beneath a guise of normalcy. It can't be Kale. It can't be. The shock is a physical blow, leaving her breathless. Betrayal washes over her, cold and sharp, cutting through the uncertainty. His face, usually a picture of quiet kindness, now seems to shift, revealing the hidden darkness the mirror sensed. She stares, unseeing, at her table, the reality of it pressing down. If it's him, what does she do? The floorboards creak softly as she slowly rises, her hands trembling. The weight of this horrifying realization settles heavily on her shoulders. Elara grips the spectral mirror, her knuckles white against the tarnished silver edge. Her focus burns, narrowing the world down to the shifting images within the glass. Sweat traces a cold path down her temple, but she barely notices. A fire is lit inside her, a fierce, relentless need for truth, for justice, perhaps even for a measure of retribution for the pain inflicted. She is not just observing now, she is hunting, using this uncanny window to stalk the suspect's past actions, seeking the irrefutable proof that feels just out of reach. The mirror flickers, showing fragmented moments like scattered shards of time. She sees the suspect's face, a flicker of anger in their eyes as they speak to someone unseen. The spectral figures are hazy, their words a low, indistinct murmur, but the tension hangs heavy in the mirrored air. Elara leans closer, breathing shallowly, trying to decipher the visual clues. Was that a gesture of threat? An exchange of something hidden? Her mind races, piecing together snippets, her heart hammering against her ribs like a drumbeat against the mounting suspense. She feels the weight of anticipation pressing down, the culmination of her desperate search drawing near. Suddenly, a scene sharpens within the glass, coalescing with chilling clarity. It is late, a deserted alleyway, the air thick with shadow and the smell of damp refuse. The suspect is there, their movements furtive, clandestine. They are placing something small and dark into a cracked bin behind a rusted grate. Elara's breath catches. It is not just suspicion now. It is the horrifying certainty of intent. The emotional climax hits her with a physical jolt, a wave of cold dread mixing with a surge of righteous fury. This is it. This is the hidden action, the damning detail she has been relentlessly pursuing. The cinematic detail is stark. The suspect's hands, ghostly pale in the mirrored gloom, pushing the object deep into the refuse, their face a mask of grim determination. The vision holds for only a moment longer before dissolving back into a swirl of spectral mist. But the location, the action, the what is hidden there. It remains etched in Elara's mind, a terrifying breadcrumb leading directly to the physical world, pointing towards a place where the truth, or perhaps something far more dangerous, is waiting to be uncovered. Elara is sitting on the edge of her worn armchair, the afternoon light fading outside the window, staining the room in bruised purples and grays. Her hands are clasped so tightly the knuckles are white, not from panic now, but from the sheer force of her decision solidifying inside her. The haze of immediate grief is lifting, replaced by a sharp, cutting clarity. She is no longer merely surviving. She is choosing. The suspect. How does she bring them into the light? Into her light? The thought of the police, the measured steps of bureaucracy, the sterile rooms and endless questions, it feels utterly inadequate. A dull tool for a wound this deep. No, this confrontation must be hers, unburdened by protocols that couldn't possibly grasp the shape of her loss. Her mind is racing, sifting through possibilities like sharp pebbles. A direct approach is too risky, too exposed. A trap, then. But where? It needs to be isolated. Somewhere control can be asserted. Somewhere the weight of the atmosphere can do some of the work. She is seeing places in her mind's eye, flashes of urban decay, forgotten corners. The abandoned steel mill on the edge of town begins to take shape in her thoughts. Its skeletal frames against the sky, the echoes that live in its vast, empty spaces, the layers of dust and rust covering everything like a shroud. It feels right. A place of industry left to ruin, a mirror to something precious, broken and discarded. Fear is a cold knot in her stomach, a constant hum beneath the surface. But it is not paralyzing her anymore. It is fuel, a dark energy mixed with the righteous fury burning in her chest. This isn't simple vengeance. It is about restoring a balance ripped violently apart, about forcing acknowledgement where none has been given. She is standing up now, moving towards the small desk in the corner, pulling out an old, folded map of the local area, tracing the routes to the mill with a steady finger. The physical act of planning feels grounding, a way to channel the chaotic storm inside into deliberate, purposeful movement. She is checking entry points, considering lines of sight, mapping out the terrain of her chosen battleground. The air feels thin, charged with anticipation. The steel is forging, tempered in sorrow, ready to strike. The crumbling concrete and hollow sounds of the mill are waiting, ready to receive the weight of what is coming. A cold wind whips through the disused theater, rattling loose boards and carrying the scent of dust and decay. Elara stands center stage, a single stark spotlight illuminating her form against the cavernous darkness of the auditorium. Her shadow stretches, a long, accusing finger pointing into the empty seats. This is the setting she chose, a place of performance and pretense, now stripped bare for a final, unscripted act. Footsteps echo from the wings, hesitant at first, then growing louder as the suspect emerges from the gloom into the periphery of the light. Their face, initially masked in a bland curiosity, flickers with surprise as they register Elara standing there alone, framed by the dramatic silence. A nervous smile pulls at their lips, a poorly constructed facade of pleasant inquiry already forming. "Elara, what are you doing here? Is everything all right?" The voice is too light, too casual, a high-pitched chirp against the heavy silence. Elara doesn't move, doesn't offer a greeting. She simply holds her ground, her gaze steady, unwavering. Inside, her heart is hammering against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the stillness of the theater. This is it. No turning back now. The air feels thick, charged with unspoken truths. She takes a slow breath, the dusty scent filling her lungs. She lifts a hand, not holding anything, but gesturing vaguely towards the empty seats, the darkened stage. "Everything is far from all right," she states, her voice resonating with a quiet strength that cuts through the suspect's feigned innocence. "You know why I'm here. You know what you've done." She doesn't need to shout. The truth itself is a roar in this quiet space. The suspect's denial is immediate, sharp. "What? I don't understand what you're talking about." "Done? I haven't done anything." Their hands flutter nervously, a telltale sign of their crumbling composure. They step further into the light, a performer desperately seeking a script, a way out of this unscripted exposure. Their eyes dart around, avoiding Elara's direct stare. Elara takes a small step forward, the sound amplified in the silence. The power dynamic shifts subtly, but undeniably. She is no longer the seeker. She is the one with the knowledge, the one in control of this unfolding drama. She doesn't need proof in her hand. Her certainty is the proof. "The missing documents," she says, her voice low, deliberate. "The fabricated evidence. The way you manipulated everyone." Each word is a stone dropped into a still pool, sending ripples of unease across the suspect's face. The nervous smile vanishes, replaced by a tight, strained line. A bead of sweat glistens on their temple, under the harsh light. They swallow hard, their throat bobbing visibly. The carefully constructed mask is beginning to crack, revealing the fear beneath. Their eyes, wide and suddenly vulnerable, meet hers for a fleeting second before darting away again. The theater feels smaller now, the exit seeming impossibly far. What else does she know? How deep does her knowledge run? The pressure is immense, crushing their composure, promising a painful unraveling. Elara lays the final photograph onto the table. It is a grainy image, but the angle is undeniable, matching the obscured background from the missing reel. David's eyes dart between the photo and Elara's steady gaze. The air in the small office feels heavy, suffocating. David is fidgeting, his fingers tracing patterns on the polished wood, his usual confident posture collapsing inward. The carefully constructed mask he has worn for decades is cracking, splintering under the weight of the evidence. A low sound escapes his throat, not a word, more like a choked gasp. He is slumping in his chair, the pretense dissolving, revealing something cold and vacant beneath. The truth isn't just being told, it is physically manifesting in his defeat. He starts speaking, the words tumbling out in a ragged torrent, a confession born not of remorse, but of being trapped. He is recounting the events of that humid August day in 1992, the details chillingly specific, contradicting his carefully crafted alibis. He describes the petty jealousy, the sudden, reckless rage sparked by something trivial, a perceived slight, a moment of envy over Elias's youthful optimism, or maybe just his freedom. Elara is listening, her heart hammering against her ribs, each word a physical blow. 31 years of searching, of doubt, of being dismissed are crashing down, replaced by a horrifying clarity. He is detailing how he lured Elias away, how a minor confrontation escalated violently. He is not showing regret, only a detached recounting of a terrible mistake he then compounded, driven by panic and a desperate need to conceal his actions. Elias's fate is revealed in stark, brutal terms, not a grand conspiracy, but a tragic, desperate act hidden away, a life extinguished over nothing. Tears are streaming down Elara's face, silent and relentless. This is the validation she craves, the confirmation that her instincts were right, that Elias wasn't a runaway, that his disappearance was a crime. But the validation offers no comfort against the sheer, devastating horror of his end, the senselessness of it all. It is agony and relief tangled together, a knot of grief tightening in her chest. She is seeing the true reflection of the man across from her, stripped bare of charm and respectability, revealing the casual cruelty that lay beneath. The office is quiet, except for David's ragged breathing and Elara's soft weeping. A single, forgotten pen rolls slowly across the table, its clicking sound amplifying the silence. He is finishing his confession, his voice trailing off, leaving a vast, empty space filled only with the terrible truth. The air crackles with the aftermath, leaving a profound stillness that feels like the end of one journey and the difficult beginning of another. Harsh light from the corridor is spilling into the dim office, catching dust motes dancing in the air. Officer Michaels is standing framed in the doorway, his expression grim, while two more figures move quietly behind him. Across the large, polished desk, Mr. Thorne is slowly sinking into his chair, his usually imposing figure seeming to shrink. Elara is watching from a small alcove by the window, holding the small, tarnished hand mirror discreetly. It feels cool and heavy in her palm. She is breathing shallowly, her heart pounding a heavy, uneven rhythm against her ribs. This is it. The mirror's surface is catching the reflection of the room, the pale faces, the dark uniforms, the undeniable weight of consequence settling like a shroud. It isn't showing visions now, just the stark reality unfolding. Elara remembers the secrets it revealed, the undeniable proof it helped uncover, piece by painstaking piece. She feels a strange mix of relief and a hollow ache. This man caused so much pain, built his success on the backs of others, including hers. Now the intricate house of cards is collapsing, not with a bang, but a quiet, devastating crumble. She sees Thorne's hand shaking as he reaches for a glass of water, the ice clinking faintly against the glass. The sound is sharp in the sudden quiet that falls after Michaels finishes speaking. Thorne's eyes flick wildly around the room, landing for a fraction of a second on Elara in her shadowed corner. There is no defiance left, only a raw, exposed panic reflected starkly in his gaze. And in the mirror she holds, he sees not Elara, but the embodiment of his downfall. The truth he tried so desperately to bury. The mirror feels intensely present, almost vibrating with the culmination of revealed secrets. A sense of cold finality washes over the room. The power he wielded is dissolving, replaced by the quiet authority of the law. Elara feels a pang of something she can't quite name. Not pity, not exactly satisfaction, but a deep, unsettling understanding of how easily a life can unravel when built on deceit. The debt is being repaid, not in kind, but in exposure, in public shame and legal repercussions. It feels less like revenge and more like equilibrium finally asserting itself. She watches as Thorne pushes himself up, his movements stiff and defeated. The officers step forward. The air is thick with unspoken consequences. This moment, witnessed in the mirror's unblinking reflection, feels like the closing of a long, dark chapter. But as the first officer gently, firmly takes Thorne's arm, Elara knows that while this specific battle for justice is ending, the aftermath is just beginning. She wonders about the quiet that will follow the storm, and what picking up the pieces truly looks like. The mirror's surface seems to hold a question mark, reflecting an uncertain future. The air hangs heavy, thick with the residue of revelation and consequence. Elara is standing amidst the quiet settling of dust, the echoing silence after the final, stark words. Her lungs ache, pulling in shaky breaths that do little to steady the trembling in her hands. The initial surge of shock is draining away, leaving behind a hollow space in her chest. It isn't triumph filling that void, but a profound, aching sadness. She is seeing not just the villain brought to light, but the boy, the young man, lost to his own darkness. Elias. The truth, sharp and unyielding, cuts deep, revealing not just his actions, but the twisted path that led him there. There is justice, yes, a cold, factual end to the deceit, but the emotional weight is crushing. For what was, grief for what could have been. Yet beneath the sorrow, a fragile sense of closure begins to form, like thin ice spreading over troubled water. The questions that haunted her, the confusion that clouded everything, they are gone. The answers are brutal, painful, but they are there. Her gaze drifts to the mirror. It isn't shimmering with restless energy anymore. The frantic light that pulsed within its depths is dimming, the surface growing still. It seems to sigh, a long, slow exhale of captured light. Is its purpose fulfilled? Is it simply ceasing to be? A faint ripple crosses the glass, not a reflection of the room, but an internal flicker. For a fleeting moment, a hazy image resolves within the depths. It is Elias, but younger, a boy standing under a clear sky, a soft smile on his face, looking utterly at peace, untouched by the shadows that would consume him. The vision holds for just a second, a poignant echo from a time before the mirror's dark work began. Then the image dissolves like mist, the glass returning to a dull, inert surface, no longer a window to the past, no longer a tool of revelation. It feels like a final goodbye, a tragic epilogue offered by the object that started it all. The mirror is quiet now, its story told, its power spent. Elara feels the silence amplifying around her, leaving her alone with the weight of everything she now knows, and the stillness of the mirror prompts a question about what comes next, now that its magic is gone and the truth revealed. The weight pressing down for so long finally fractures. Elara isn't fighting anymore. She is sinking into the soft earth of reality, the truth a strange comfort rather than another blow. Tears are streaming down her face, hot rivers carving paths through the dust of years. But these are different tears. They aren't born of confusion or the crushing burden of doubt about her own sanity. They are the clean, aching tears of pure grief. Grief for the life stolen, for the innocence lost, for the profound, decades-long betrayal. She is sitting by the window, sunlight warming one side of her face, highlighting the wet tracks on her cheek. Her breathing is ragged, deep sobs racking her body, but with each exhale, a tiny bit of the tension unwinds. It's like a coiled spring finally releasing its stored energy, not violently, but with a trembling, shuddering motion. The room is silent, save for her crying. The world outside, a muted hum. For the first time, she is grieving openly, truly, for the little girl who was gaslit, for the young woman who questioned herself, for the adult who carried an invisible scar. The process is arduous, a slow excavation of buried pain, but the truth is the sturdy shovel that allows her to dig without fear of collapsing the tunnel. A fragile peace is settling in, not the absence of pain, but the absence of lies. It's the quiet assurance that she wasn't broken, she was deceived. This understanding fuels a different kind of strength, a deep-seated resilience that glows faintly now. Perthis isn't screaming at her, It's whispering, a quiet resolve to live the remainder of her life authentically, honoring the truth that finally set her free. She looks towards the mirror across the room. It's just a mirror now, reflecting the sunlit wall, a chair, a corner of a rug. The distortions are gone, the hidden panels revealed. It no longer holds secrets behind the glass, only the simple reflection in front of it. It mirrors back a face etched with weariness and the remnants of tears, but also a steady gaze, a burgeoning sense of self. The mirror's final significance isn't in the deception it concealed, but in the true self it finally allows her to see reflected there. Not the broken victim, but the survivor finding her way to the light, facing forward into a future that feels fragile but real. The long struggle is settling into a quiet hum within her soul, the echoes of the past fading, weaving a tender silence that feels like the edge of something new. The energy required to simply exist feels vast, a quiet exhaustion permeating every muscle. The peace that is settled isn't a triumphant joy, but a deep, weary stillness. It feels like the world has muted, the vibrant colors softened, the sharp edges dulled. There's a persistent, low thrum of sadness that doesn't dissipate, a quiet lament for the years consumed by shadows. It's not despair, just the quiet aftermath, the landscape after the storm is past, but before the slow, tentative bloom of recovery truly begins. Her emotions are scattered like fallen leaves, moments of fragile peace, waves of unexpected melancholy, a quiet, simmering anger at the injustice of it all. The journey feels complete, the destination reached, but it is a place of quiet reflection rather than grand celebration. She traces the lines on her palm, feeling the texture of her own skin, a simple, solid reality. A sliver of pale moonlight falls across the floor, painting a gentle path. It's just light, quiet and unwavering. The door to the rest of her life isn't flung wide. It is simply ajar, waiting.